Picture this. You have more than enough. Your wrist is heavy with ornament. Your meals are never interrupted by hunger. Your carriage waits. For a moment, nothing bothers you. No invoices, no lines, no embarrassing explanations. But now blink, and you are not in your loft or your penthouse. You are breathing hot air that smells of river mud and reed smoke. The sun is a hard coin over a flat ochre land. You lie on a simple wooden pallet, a block of wood under your head, sand baked into the seams of your bread. Your teeth ache from grit, and you can taste old blood on the back of your tongue. This is Egypt, 2,000 years before Christ. You are rich here, and everything you own rests on a single word. Your land is good. Your storehouses bulge. You command labor and cattle. Symbols of authority hang from your belt. But your security is not a system you designed. It is an arrangement with one person, the pharaoh. He can decree your favor or your doom with equal breath. A tax reform, an accusation from a rival, a bad season, any of it can strip you of title and people overnight. The river that feeds you also carries disease. Mosquitoes gather where water pools, fevers ripple through households. Your wealth buys better food, but it does not buy immunity. The sandals you wear cannot keep out the parasites in the marshes. The wood that props your head cannot stop a fever or a broken jaw from ending your line. You think of craftsmen paid in grain, children traded for labor that you oversee, without seeing the slow toll on the bodies that sustain your table. Slavery is a reality of the time, an institution that makes your prosperity possible, and that deserves to be named, frankly, and without romance. In this era, to be wealthy is to be intimately tied to other people's flesh and fate, and to be completely dependent on someone who dresses like a god. The morning messenger bearing the pharaoh's seal could make you a patron of temples or a footnote in a courtroom of sand. Rich here means your fate is not primarily economic. It is political and biological, fragile in ways a ledger cannot catch. And then the courier arrives at dusk. He hands you a thin tablet. You read a single line scribbled in a hurried hand. The pharaoh requests you to appear. You tie your sandals and walk, knowing that whatever greets you on the palace steps will not be cancelled by coin. In Egypt, being visible to power is equivalent to being vulnerable to it. Now let the heat fall away. The world tilts, stone becomes marble, and you find yourself reclining on cushions, warmed by a clever system of underfloor flues. The baths are public, and so are the toilets, long benches of carved stone, salt-scraped and communal. Around you, conversation peels like citrus, brisk, bright, cutting. Platters of roasted dormice and trays of wine are pushed along lacquered tables. You have servants who attend to the angle of your dish and the exact temperature of the water. Luxury here has texture, a certain shaved softness at the cuff, the scent of oils in your hair. You are a Roman of the 1st century, and your attention is currency. But attention here is a blade. The more visibly you indulge, the more you invite the gaze of someone with power sharper than money. At dinner, a joke about an emperor's taste, a careless word about a governor's tax, a misplaced laugh. These little things can be turned into crimes by rumor, by a whisper in a corridor, by an informant who covets your villa. Political life is public theatre that can end with exile, confiscation, or worse. You are never only wealthy, you are a spectacle. Visibility secures status, but also marks you as a potential enemy. The most ordinary social evening can become the stage for a fatal accusation. Your friend jokes about a general, a poet praises a rival, a guest, drunk or ambitious, mentions treason as a clever aside. The next morning, a law is interpreted, a soldier comes in bronze, and your name is crossed off the roll. Wealth in Rome is bright and performative, and its brightness makes it an easy target. The same hands that lift your cup consign your downfall. You rise from your couch, sandals snapping on stone, and as you step into the atrium, the slave at the threshold leans in, lowers his voice. Someone has been whispering about your loyalty. You remember a minor insult at last week's banquet and realize how small gestures become evidence. In Rome, being conspicuous is not merely a social risk, it can be lethal. Fast forward again. Cold air bites at the edge of your layered wool. The hearth in your hall throws a thin orange band across stone walls so vast they echo footfalls. You are in medieval England, the year somewhere near 1250. Your castle is a vertical town, storerooms, garrison chambers, a narrow stair that shudders. The toilet is a wooden chute that drops into the moat or cesspit. A congregation of pigeons roost on the parapet. Your hands are chapped from wind, and your breath fogs the air. Here, wealth looks like land stitched together into a ring of fortifications. You own fields that sustain people, and neighbors who want what you have. Wealth in this time is a beacon in a landscape of sieges and claims. The local baron can muster men at a shout, a feud, a disputed boundary, a bride pulled to another house. These small sparks can kindle a siege. Your estate becomes a target, not only for raiders, but for organized extraction. Taxes, levies, the service your liege demands. Castles were built to keep people out, but they also keep you in. Your rooms are insulated against invasion, but insulated from community. The lord of the manor dines in solitude among retainers who watch him more than they love him. The smell of damp straw and the creak of timber warn you before banners crest the ridge. You hear the war horn and the practiced holler as lamplight flickers in distant towers. Your stockpiles are counted, gates shuttered, all wealth transmuted into supplies against a siege. You are rich, yes, rich enough to be ruinously useful. People in the surrounding countryside watch, wait, and sometimes choose sides. A feud can escalate beyond repair. In this era, your prosperity makes you an architectural target. You have walls, and yet you are more exposed than any tenant farmer who tends a single acre. The messenger rounds the tower and hands you a fragment of parchment. The neighboring lord has raised a claim. Men sharpen tools in his yard. You organize a defense, you ration grain, you send riders to plead or threaten. In the end, wealth has hollowed out the meaning of home. Your stronghold is a fortress because your possessions compelled you to fortify, and every gate you build tightens the circle of your solitude. Wealth here translates into the risk that your life will be measured in battlements and wagons and the echo of marching boots. Now the pace of history quickens. You cross an ocean and clamber down a stoop that smells faintly of coal smoke and new varnish. A brass nameplate glints beside the door. You are in New York, in the last decade of the 19th century. Your mansion sits behind a hedge on a wide avenue. Curtains are heavy as theaters, carpets deep as secrets. Steam heat hums through pipes. Your staff is vast and learned in the small cruelties and courtesies of display. You keep a box at the opera. You host dinners that are audited by society columns. Your carriage route is an invitation list. In the Gilded Age, wealth is theatre, and theatre requires an audience. You are performed into being by clubs, by the press, by other people's expectations of what a person like you does, wears, and hosts. Your identity is stitched together from the right portraits on the parlour walls, the right guests at the right table, the right philanthropy announced at the proper rate. One misstep, an unpopular marriage, a penny-pinching gesture, a failure to sponsor the right charity, and your social currency evaporates. Ostracism is a slow poison. It is a quiet death by exclusion that shows itself in fewer invitations, blank columns, the sense that you have been cut out of the only script that gives meaning to the piles of wealth you own. The music stops, and a single critic in an evening paper lifts an eyebrow. Tomorrow's carriage route is suddenly uncertain. You are not physically threatened in the same way as in earlier centuries. No siege, no imperial edict. But your life is still structured by other people's judgment. The velvet that surrounds you is also a cage. You stand on a balcony, watching lights go on in the houses across the avenue, and you realize that your social life has become a ledger where reputation is the principal account. Lose it and the mansion remains, but its rooms hold only echoes. At this point you might expect the sums and the servants to make everything easier. You might imagine that technology, plumbing and steam have solved the ancient vulnerabilities. They have solved some, yes. But now we arrive at the present, your present, where the comforts are astonishingly complete and the dangers are of a different architecture. You sit in a quiet room with matte walls and a deliberately plain chair, the aesthetic of stealth wealth. Your passport sits in a custom case. Your pilot's call sign is encrypted. Your team can move you in hours. You eat curated food, cold-pressed, balanced, precisely measured. Your house recognizes the cadence of your footfall, lights dim before you reach the hallway. Your calendar is tightened by algorithms that promise to optimize every minute for maximum return. Your portfolio is global. A typo in code or a rumor on a messaging app can erase billions before breakfast. You can buy privacy, but you cannot buy obscurity. This is modern wealth. Private jets and biometrics, yes, but also a total dependence on networks that broadcast and punish in real time. Speed is the new scalpel. A single headline, an old indiscretion resurfaced, a misheard conversation, a hacked voicemail, travels faster than your best lawyers can assemble defenses. Extortion is not always a threat from the street. Often it arrives as a DM with a recording that could be weaponized. Your visible life may be curated to the point of anonymity, the stealth aesthetic designed so that you do not stand out. Yet invisibility can be weaponized against you. Being unknown in public corrodes the normal give and take of trust. People you pass in airports are more likely to be tools or threats because the social glue of small reciprocal recognition is missing. Beyond speed and surveillance is a rarer hazard, structural loneliness. You can be flawlessly optimized, diet, sleep, workflow, asset allocation, and still feel untethered. The rituals that once anchored class, regular tables, neighborhood obligations, civic rituals, have been replaced by bespoke experiences that can be purchased but not inhabited in community. Your friendships have NDAs. Your family relationships are mediated by advisors. Intimacy can become a transaction. A boat can sail you across oceans, but it cannot ferry you past the sense that every interaction has an agenda. There is also the attention economy, and as the wealthier you are, the more it wants you. Investors, journalists, influencers, regulators, activists, predators, their attention is the currency that can topple you. In the old world, danger arrived via visible armies and courts. Now danger arrives as notification pings. Markets move at the speed of rumors. Your reputation can erode overnight by a single viral clip. Your capital can vaporize with a swap gone wrong. Your privacy can be converted into leverage. The infrastructure that makes your life efficient is the same infrastructure that magnifies your exposures. Consider a late-night alert. An aggressive legal claim has popped up on an obscure forum. Within an hour, it has been amplified by a podcast and co-opted by an investigative reporter. Your crisis team scrambles. You can buy media spin. You can hire cybersecurity experts. You can bunker down in a secure compound with biometric locks and climate control. None of that replaces the feeling of being hunted by a dispersed and anonymous crowd. An economy of attention that does not rest. Here is the crucial stitch that connects these eras. In every one of them, wealth creates dependencies and vulnerabilities tied to the technology and social arrangements of the moment. In Egypt, it was the favor of a sovereign and the limits of medical knowledge. In Rome, it was the court's appetite for spectacle and the danger of being too visible. In medieval England, it was the military reality of neighbors and fortified claim. In the Gilded Age, it was the theatre of reputation and performance. Today, those old liabilities haven't disappeared. They've been recombined and accelerated. Speed replaces the pharaoh's whim with algorithmic rumor. Surveillance maps onto the Roman audience in the form of constant digital scrutiny. The castle's isolation is now a penthouse with controlled access, but no real neighborly ties. The theatre of society is amplified into public shaming that is both mass and instantaneous. Modern wealth concentrates and compounds the dangers of every prior age, while adding new, uniquely contemporary harms, instantaneous collapse, attention as an existential threat, and a curated solitude that can't be outsourced. You might ask, is wealth itself the mistake, or is it what wealth purchases? That is the subtlety. Money solves problems. Stairs are easier when built, teeth can be repaired, travel becomes possible. But it can also outsource your obligations and flatten the messy, relational repairs that make life meaningful. Wealth in modernity advertises a solution: optimize everything, eliminate friction, control output. But optimization is not the same as belonging. The more you reduce unpredictability, the fewer opportunities remain for the spontaneous ties that bind you to other people in candid rather than contractual ways. At some point in your life, you will encounter a paradox as plain as sand in bread. You can acquire impeccable control over your environment and still be helpless to fix the part of you that hunger cannot fill. You can have the fastest plane and still find mornings when you wake with the same hollow curiosity you had as a child in a thin mattress. You can hire people to laugh at your jokes and professionals to deliver compliments tuned to your mood, and yet a loneliness that feels less like absence than like a missing grammar of mutual life persists. For a brief, pragmatic aside, there are tools that promise to help you manage complexity, technologies that can triage messages, prioritize threats, and model scenarios. Some of these services are brilliant and useful for a modern life lived at scale. If you ever need a system to sift noise from signal, look for providers that emphasize human judgment as much as automation, because the machines are fast, but the judgment that matters tends to be slow and moral. This is the sort of practical note you might have expected from a sponsor that helps busy people organize cognitive load, an aside that feels useful rather than preachy. But remember, no dashboard will substitute for the work of building relationships that aren't transactional. You are now pushed toward a quiet conclusion. The nature of the mistake that wealth represents today is not that it is per se evil. The mistake is assuming that more optimization and more privacy and more mobility will finally make you whole. The mistake is believing that you can transactionalize the last things, attention, loyalty, belonging, and expect them to behave like other investable assets. When you trust an algorithm to assign your intimacy, you lose the messy, risky labor of friendship that requires time and mutual exposure. When the speed of consequence outpaces the speed of repair, small failures cascade into existential threats. The systems that amplify your gains amplify your losses faster. So where does that leave you, sitting in your climate-controlled suite or on your private flight, immaculate and guarded? You sleep behind blackout curtains. Your calendar is trimmed to efficiency. Your food is optimized. Your schedule calibrated. Your life is an exercise in risk management and in many ways very well managed, but there is a bed behind those blinds that no appliance can warm. There is a space in your waking where no optimization ever quite lands. You can buy a house that looks like a home, but design it so carefully that it has none of the accidental hospitality that makes a place unforgettable. You can hire people to be present with you, but not to long for you. Why then could being rich right now be your biggest mistake? Because in our era, wealth magnifies a particular human failing, the temptation to replace relation with transaction. It concentrates ancient vulnerabilities in new forms and adds speed and attention as accelerants. It gives you means to solve most problems, but creates a kind of scarcity that money can't buy, meaningful belonging that isn't for sale. The modern wealthy person can, paradoxically, be the most exposed and the most alone. Exposed because everything is networked and immediate. Alone because every connection risks a boundary crossed into obligation or scandal. If you could choose any of these eras to be wealthy, which would you pick? Would you prefer the dependence on a pharaoh, the danger of Roman rumor, the siege mentality of a medieval lord, the social theatre of the Gilded Age, or the high-speed, high-surveillance solitude of the present? Each comes with privileges and penalties. Our present pile of comforts has the worst feature. It makes the old costs invisible until they arrive, fast and ruthless. Think of a simple image. An impeccably furnished bedroom with a smart window that tints at a whisper, a mattress designed for perfect sleep metrics, a refrigerator that restocks on command. Outside, everything functions like clockwork. Inside, your phone rings with an anonymous accusation. The blinds close. You breathe the filtered air and feel for a moment the old animal fear of being seen and taken down, but you also feel the new, quieter panic that no one outside the perimeter is coming in to stay. Optimization made the bed perfect. It did not make it warm. If this has settled on you, a single small request. If you found this idea useful or unsettling, subscribe and share it with someone who likes thinking about how the past haunts our present. Tell us in the comments, if you could be rich in any of those 5 worlds, which would you choose and why? Consider it not as a test of your taste, but as a prompt. What do you value that money, even at its highest, cannot simply replace?